Hi, this is Simon Upstill and welcome to another tutorial for Resolve Fusion, and today I'd like to take a look at building this shield blast scene. So in this rough test, what I'm doing is I'm actually applying a 3D displace, but in this tutorial we're going to be using a 2D displace because it's both more efficient and I actually think it looks quite a lot better. I can certainly show you how to make the 3D displace if anybody's interested in that technique. But what I wanted to stress in this tutorial is something that rarely gets enough attention, and that's the importance of making your effects as procedural as possible, so that if you need to change something or duplicate something, you can do that with the minimum of time and effort. So let's get going. Okay, so here we are in Resolve, and I'm going to make a new Fusion composition. Right-click, New Fusion Composition. Let's make it 10 seconds long, a frame rate of 24, and let's call this Tutorial. And let's right click and open in Fusion Page. So the thing about this project is it's going to be entirely procedural in such a way that we will have one control that fires off the ray and then automatically creates the displacement, it fires off the particles and initiates camera shake. So that's going to be pretty interesting to set up. Let's just first of all set up our base scene. So I'm going to add a 3D shape node and I'm going to set it to sphere. Let's have a 3D camera, which creates a 3D merge like that. And let's have a 3D renderer after that. And let's set the renderer type to hardware. And let's turn on lighting. So then let's take our renderer out into our media out like that. So the camera needs to be at somewhere like 4 on Z for us to be able to see things. And we need to add some lights to our merge here. So let's add a 3-point light like this. Let's just first of all just move it out like that so we can see a little bit of something. So then I want to just give a little bit of texture to my shape. So I'm going to come over to my media pool. I've got this texture called Honeycomb 2, which I'll give you a link to. Now the one thing I want to make sure you have is if you come over to settings, make sure you've got mismatched resolution files are set to stretch frame to all corners. Otherwise it's a real pain. So set that up like that. So this is what our texture looks like. It's a little bit distorted because obviously it's come in at 1920 1080, which is my project resolution. So what I want to do is I want to resize this. So I'm going to add a resize node and I want to resize it to its original dimensions, which is 2000 by 1000. And then if we look at that, it's no longer stretched, squashed I should say. And then what I'm going to do is just add a luma keyer to this. Let's take that into our 3D shape and let's take a look at the output here. Let's just crunch the luma keyer a little bit like that, I think. Let's invert it so that the lines are solid and the panels are see-through, as it were. Let's come into the shape and let's just give it a little bit of help with the color. Doesn't really matter. This is not really about setting up the overall scene, but I think this is going to be nicer if we can have a nice color in there. While we're at it, let's add in a floor. So with the 3D merge selected, let's add another 3D shape and let's call that floor. Come over to the transform, set the X rotation to -90. And let's just move it down on Y to -0.5. And let's set the scale to 1000. And it's going to chop off the bottom of the sphere, which is what I want for this scene. And let's just come to the material and let's make it very dark grey like that. So let's add a background node as well and take our renderer output over the background node and that into our media out. And I'm just going to copy that light, paste it, add it to this merge, and I just want to move this back on Z quite a lot like that. So it's lighting up the background, move it up on Y like that. Now we'll need to have quite a few more subdivisions for our shape. So let's go for, I don't know, 300 by 300, and that'll just smooth things out a bit. So now we've got our base scene set up. In actual fact, let's actually give that an underlay so we can see what it all is. So flow underlay, let's rename that as base. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take our shape here, Command C and Shift Command V to make an instance of it. So now we're going to work on our displace map. The first thing I want to add is another 3-point light. So add a 3-point light like that. And after it, I'm going to add a 3D merge like this. And then I'm going to add another 3D merge after that, because this 3D merge we've just added, this one here, is going to be our master control for the position. And I don't want to move my sphere, so I'm adding the sphere to this merge here. So now we've got our sphere and our point light there. So what we need to do is take this merge and we need to add a 3D renderer to it. Like this. We do want lighting like that. That'll do for the time being. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my light and I'm going to set its Z position to 1.05, I think, something like that. Let's just set this renderer to be hardware renderer as well. Now, why can't we see the light? Well, it's because this merge here needs to have pass-through lights turned on. So now we can see that. Then what we can do is we can take this merge and we can position this exactly where we want it in relation to the sphere, like that. So I'm just going to adjust this point light, come to controls. Let's again switch to linear, and that's going to give us a better shape. So this is going to be the shape for our displace map. And you can see that it's going to be super easy to position that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a fast noise, and I'm going to take my 3D renderer and I'm going to add it as the effect mask input to the fast noise like that. And if we look at the fast noise now, it looks like that, but that's because we need to come over to settings and we need to use luminance as the source. And now you see we've got that isolated, and that's exactly what we want. Let's come over to the noise. Let's set the contrast up to something like 2. Let's set the scale to 10 maybe. Okay, so I think you can probably now see what we are doing here. So let's just make an underlay for this as well. And let's call this displace map. Now what we can do is, if I make a bit of space here, is we can come back to our base scene, and after the renderer we can add a 2D displace, because this is actually going to be a 2D effect rather than a 3D effect, and you won't really know the difference. So I'm going to take my fast noise and I'm going to add it as the foreground for that displace. And now let's look at our media out over here, and we just need to increase the refraction strength, and you can probably see up there that we're getting that displacement over there. Now what we also want to do is we want to use this light, or rather this repositioned light, and add it to our base scene. So we're going to take this merge here and bring it into that merge there. And now that's looking a lot better, as you can see. So as we animate the intensity of this light, the effect materializes like that. And also we're getting that added bonus of that light lighting up the rest of the scene. So let's come to, I don't know, frame 10 or something, and let's keyframe that, set that to 0. Let's step forward maybe a couple of frames, set the intensity up to 1. Let's come forward to, I don't know, 30 frames and set that down to 0. And we might want to just come into the spline editor and smooth this point. So select it, Shift S to smooth it, and maybe even adjust that a little bit like that. So that is our basic animation like that. So then what we need to do is we need to think about particles. So let's now just move that all down a little bit, and let's add a particle emitter, and let's add maybe a P directional force after that. Let's add a particle renderer. Let's take this merge here, Command C, and then with the renderer selected, Command Shift V, and that's made an instance of that merge. And then let's move this region of the emitter to be the same as the light that we offset there. So we offset that to 1.05. Let's do the same thing here on Z, 1.05. And that's going to position that emitter. We can't yet see it, but it's going to position it up here and where we want it to be. Tell you what, I'm just going to move that camera up just a little bit so we can see that area a little bit more like that. There you go. Now you may have noticed that as I moved the camera there, something funky happened, and that was because I've actually omitted to add the camera to the second merge in the displace group, and I'll sort that out at the end. What it does mean is that the displace is actually out of sync with everything else. So then we need another merge after this merge here. Remember, this merge is a positioner for the particles, so we don't want to affect that. So we're going to add another 3D merge after that, like this, and we're going to take our camera into that 3D merge. Sorry, I need to make a bit of space to get to my camera. Here we are, camera into that 3D merge like that. And then we can render that. So let's add a 3D renderer like so. Let's have a look at that. You can see some particles over there. And just to complete our composite, let's just come down here, and we want to merge it after this displace, I think. Let's do it that way. So let's add a 2D merge in there. Let's take this renderer here into that merge there. And let's look at the media out. So you can probably just about see those particles. What we need to do is come over to the emitter and set this up a little bit better. So let's come to the controls. And what we're going to do with this, I won't do it just yet, but we're going to link the number to that point light so that they start emitting when that point light fires off. But first of all, let's come over to the style. Let's set the style rather, to blob. And let's maybe set this size down a little bit. So 0.025, and let's have 0.025 for the size variance. And let's just have a bit of a fade out like that. And let's come over to the color controls, color over life. Let's click here to make a color tag over there. Let's make that completely red. Let's click and make one here. Let's make that sort of nice yellow. Let's make this one sort of blue like that. What else do we want to do? Okay, we need to get the direction correct. So let's come back to the controls here. We'll need some velocity, so let's go for velocity of, I think, 0.5. And we want to set this angle Z, I think, to be 90. There you go, 90. So they're firing out of that point there, as you can see. Maybe let's just increase this region size just a little bit. 0.15. Come back over to these controls. What we want is some angle variance here. So let's go for 60 there on that angle variance and 60 on the Z angle variance. So as I said, what we were going to do is we were going to link the number to the point light. So let's give the point light a better name. Let's just call it light A. And we were going to link to the intensity. So we just need to remember that. And I'm going to come back to our emitter. I'm going to add an expression to the number there. And I know what I want to link to. It's light A dot intensity. But I want a little bit more, so I'm going to multiply that by 20. And now hopefully you can see that as the ray hits, the particles fire off like that. Pretty good. Let's actually adjust that directional force, and let's have a strength of maybe 0.5 so they fall down. Or I don't know. It's up to you what you want to do with that. So let's just actually rename this merge here because it's not very obvious, is it? Let's call it positioner. And here we can see that we can now line this impact up to wherever we want it to be, and the particles are doing their thing as well. So the next thing that I want to do, or the final thing I want to do, because I'm not going to build this entire scene because it's going to take absolutely forever. I'm just going to take that camera and I'm going to bring it out over here because that's what we want to concentrate on next. We want to add some shake to the camera. And again, we want to be able to link it to our overall effect. You know what I haven't done there is this renderer here. I should probably switch that to hardware renderer and then also set the shading model to quick sort and maybe just come back to this merge, and we don't want any alpha gain. And you can see the difference that makes. Turning the alpha gain down gives us that nice additive look there. Sorry, it's a little bit of a detail, but worth pointing out. Okay, let's come back to our camera here. And as I say, what we want to do is we want to give it some camera shake. So we're going to add a 3D merge because I want to be able to animate my camera independently of the camera shake. And we can do that with the 3D merge. So let's come over to the transform. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the X and we're going to modify with perturb. And we're going to do the same thing with the Y, so modify with perturb. And let's come over to the modifiers here. So we've got our two perturbs here. Let's just set them up. I'm going to leave the strength for the time being, but I'm going to set that wobble to 0.1 and the speed to 20. And let's do the same thing with this other one, wobble 0.1, speed 20. Here, let's just have a different random seed for the top one because we want the X and the Y to be wobbling differently. So now the camera is wobbling around like that. Actually, that amount is much too much, isn't it? Let's go for 0.025 for the wobble. So then what I want to do is I want to link this strength to this strength, just so we don't have to link them both. Let's add an expression to that, and I'm going to link this one to here. And then what we're going to do is going to add an expression to that strength there. And again, we're going to just link it to that light A dot intensity. And now you'll see that the camera is not wobbling, and then when it hits, it starts to wobble like that. Let's just move this camera out a bit so you can see this a bit better. Let's go for maybe 6 on that. So then if we run it, it's probably not going to run terribly smoothly, but hopefully you can see that everything is happening at the same time like that. So, having made a big song and dance about making everything procedural, there is something that I have actually omitted to do. So if I move that positioner, you'll see that the displacement position is not in sync with the rest of it. So what I forgot to do was I forgot to add my camera. So here's my camera. That's my merge that's creating the camera shake. What I need to do is add that to this 3D merge here. So let's do that. So I'm going to take that into there. And now you probably see, let's just come back to the displace and let's play with that. Let's have much more refraction strength. Let's maybe increase the light power. That's more like the effect that we want. And now it's all actually in sync with the particles and everything else. So well worth playing with the refraction to get the look that you want. You can really exaggerate it like that, and I think that looks pretty nice like that. And while we're talking about things that I forgot to do, if we come to the emitter, I should have set this lifespan to be something much less, so maybe even something like 18. And you can see that color change happening now. So that's another thing that I'd forgotten to do. So obviously what you're going to want is multiple impacts. So if you want multiple impacts from the same shooting position, all you need to do is to loop this light animation. So you can loop this. So that's a very easy way of just getting repeat hits from the same direction. If you want different directions, you're going to have to duplicate this displace section here and duplicate the emitter section as well. So you've got alternative directions, but I'm sure you can work that out. And I'm afraid there just isn't enough time for me to show you all of that in detail. So I hope that's enough to get you going. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you again soon.